NOAA just raised the odds of a super El Nino event to 37%. That number was 25% just 3 weeks ago, and some of the most reliable models on the planet are now showing something that hasn't happened since 1877, 150 years ago. I want to walk you through exactly what's forming in the Pacific right now, what the historical record tells us actually happens when one of these events goes, and if you're a farmer, rancher, skier, snowboarder, I'm going to get to that part that matters most to you before this video is over. For those newer to the channel, real quick background, I promise this will be faster than any weather class you sat through. El Nino is a warming of the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean. Not a storm, not a season. It's a shift in the ocean surface temperatures that rewires the jet stream. It changes where storms track and has downstream effects on temperatures, rain, drought across the entire planet. This is what the Pacific looks like right now, in mid-May. You can see the warm pool here. La Niña, which gave us a cooler than normal Pacific this past winter, she's gone. We're basically in neutral to warm territory, and that heat is building fast. NOAA's latest models, released this week, give us an 82% chance that any kind of El Nino forms between now and July. Later in the year, the chance of El Nino is 98%. So the question is not when or if, it's how strong. Here's where it gets serious. A normal El Nino would peak around a half a degree to 1 degree, this is Celsius, above average in the Niño 3.4 region. It's a benchmark area that we as scientists use. A strong El Nino is a plus 1.5, and then a super El Nino kicks in at about 2 degrees Celsius and larger. 2015, 2016, 97, 98, those were super events, and garnering some excitement for this event because it's so similar. Right now, the American and Australian modeling, two of the best seasonal models in the world, they're projecting sea surface temperature anomalies between about 2.5 to 3 degrees Celsius by late 2026, would be the highest on record. That would surpass 97, 98, and would make this the strongest El Nino since 1877, when the event triggered droughts, famines across 3 continents. Terrible situation then. However, the European modeling, if you just look at the average of all their ensembles, is about 2 to 2.5 degree range. Their ensembles, some of them are well above 3 though. If you look all modeling, put them all together, about 15 different ones together, there's about 2.4 degrees or so, if they're all grouped together. But of course, modeling has biases, the time of year and things with the spring predictability barrier. But even if you adjust for some of these biases, we still have a super event highly likely later this year. I want to be careful here. We're still in the spring predictability barrier. Research shows the seasonal computer models don't really gain a notable boost in accuracy or skill until the update starting in June. As it stands today, though, we're 5-7 months away from peak intensity. These model signals, they're real, but they do carry uncertainty. What I can tell you that 3 weeks ago, the odds of a super event were about 25%. Now they're 37%, so clearly we're going in one direction. The scientific community paying attention. CNN, Washington Post, Time Magazine, Nature, they're all publishing about it. So let's join the conversation. Let's go to the historical record, because this is where meteorologists like myself, the job gets interesting. The two best analogs we have for the potential super El Nino, they're 97 and 98 and 2015 into 16. Let me show you exactly what happened during those winters in the US and southern Canada. 97-98. The northern tier, so the upper Midwest, Great Lakes, northern plains, ran significantly warmer than average. The southern tier, California, the desert Southwest, parts of the Gulf Coast, got hammered with rain and flooding. The Pacific jet stream was supercharged, aimed directly at California. Precipitation departures were massive. California saw some of the wettest winters on record. Meanwhile, the Pacific Northwest and parts of the northern Rockies were dry. Southeast, notably wet. 2015-2016 now. It followed a similar playbook. Warmer north, wetter south and southwest. The northern plains had one of the mildest winters in decades. Less snow, early spring. It did disrupt dormancy cycles though. I want to be honest, every single El Nino event will be different in some way. Atmospheric response doesn't always match the ocean forcing perfectly. 2023 and 2024 was a perfect example of that. But when you look closer at the matching analogs, pointing in the same direction as 15, 16, and 97, 98, you got to pay attention to that signal. So what does this all mean for the coming fall and winter? Let me walk you through some regions. We'll start off in the northern plains and upper Midwest. If the historical analogs and modeling hold, you're looking at a very warm winter ahead. Reduced snowpack in the northern Rockies and northern plains. Less bitter cold events, but that's not necessarily a good thing. I'll touch on that in a second. California and the desert Southwest. elevated chances for above normal precip. Could mean drought recovery in parts of California and Arizona that have been running so dry. Also raises the risks of flood though, especially in those burn scars. Southern plains, so Texas, Oklahoma. Historically, this region picks up above normal precip. It's a wet pattern in most El Nino winters. Wetter conditions, better soil, moisture going into spring, wheat belt, pasture land, good news. Pacific Northwest, Northern Rockies, southwestern Canada. Mixed bag. Historically drier during strong El Ninos, snowpack concerns, Columbia River Basin, parts of Montana, Idaho, and Alberta. The East, a warmer, typically less snowy winter is kind of a dominating signal for the eastern U.S. during strong El Ninos. But the Southeast, they can hold the storm tracks. Now let's talk about another concern that comes with a record strength event. Now it's flooding, obviously, warmer global temperatures, that's number 2. Number 3 would be wildfire. There's research recently that has a strong connection between super El Ninos and the fire danger in the U.S., mostly the Northwest, Australia, and Canada. All right, for my farmers and ranchers watching, here's what I want you to think about. First, drought. A strong El Nino typically brings drought relief to the southern plains. If you're in wheat country, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, the Texas Panhandle, the soil moisture picture heading into 2027 could look significantly different than what we have now because of back-to-back La Nina winters. It's worth watching. Growing season timing. A warmer northern plains winter sounds nice, but winters can disrupt the dormancy of winter wheat, could accelerate spring warming in ways that increase that late frost risk. We saw that in 2016. Could be a variable to watch out for. Third, hay and pasture. So the Pacific Northwest, Northern Rockies going drier is not necessarily good news for hay production, obviously, in those regions that aren't irrigated. If you have source hay from, say, Montana, Idaho, into Alberta, have some conversations with suppliers now. Prices in 2027 could reflect some scarcity before the season even gets going. Fourth thing to watch out for is the hurricane season. El Nino kind of suppresses the Atlantic hurricanes, so Gulf Coast producers, a meaningful reduction in risk for the August through October window. It doesn't eliminate the risk of hurricanes, but it reduces it. Eastern Pacific hurricanes can increase though. And fifth, this is a big one. It goes out to skiers, snowboarders, water managers. Western water woes can happen with dependent on snowpack. Warmer, drier Pacific Northwest winter means lower spring runoff, lower reservoir levels by summer, tight irrigation allocations through 2027. Colorado River Basin, Columbia Basin, water planning conversations need to start now. Snowpack could be reduced for the northern ski areas and increased for the central and southern ones. Here's the bottom line. El Nino is coming. The question of whether it becomes a historic event will be answered over the coming next 3-4 months or so. I'll be tracking this every step of the way. If you want the full seasonal forecast, not just a general overview like this video, but actual numbers, region by region, or down to your zip code for temperature and precip, that lives in Cattle Facts, NCBA memberships, and my website, makensweather.com. Clients get access to that kind of detail. And links to those entities are in the description. If this video was useful, subscribe, because as this event develops, I'm going to keep building on this. The next video will cover what the latest model runs are showing for fall 2026 specifically, but throughout. Drop a comment. Tell me where you are watching from. I'll read every one. It's helpful to build future videos knowing the regions I need to highlight in these videos.